To all the civilians who are never seen war up close and are enthusiastically celebrating the deaths of Iranians, civilian and military, with terms like lit up and taken out, as if this was some kind of football game. Stop now. War is death and destruction. Films and TV do not show the real violence, as it is too graphic to bear. You never see them slowly bleed out and convulse. There's nothing glorious when a human being dies and their bowels release. There's nothing to cheer about when you watch someone drown or burn alive in panic. Report the enemy killed in action and enemy wounded in action, but solemnly respect the dead and dying and those who will die, and pray for them and their loved ones. And that goes for Secretary of War Pete Hegseth especially. I'm a retired soldier, special agent, and spy, turned whistleblower warrior. Served and sabotaged, rejected and redeemed, failed and forgiven, betrayed and saved, rejecting revenge, humbled and blessed, repurposed in redemption as chaplain, leader, teacher, and truth teller. Now America's intelligence officer, following God, leading my family, and any that choose to join on our long walk to faith and freedom. Welcome. I'm Jeff Prather, and this is the Prather Point. Welcome, everybody. Today's Prather Point podcast is entitled CIA Kurds Attack Iran equals Long War. So I am assessing and projecting right now, this is not going to be over in a couple of weeks nor months. We'll see if I am right. I'm also going to talk about Iran TV hacked and urges the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, to join the protesters. And the U.S. still does not control Iranian airspace. And a big story, very important, America's virtue restarts in Arkansas. Resistance is rising inside Israel as well. But before I get any further going, please go to beready123.com or sat123.com. Get your Iridium 9555 phone for free with a 24-month contract because there are going to be more false flags, I project, and things are going to be shut down. And use the promo code Prather for 10% off. And besides that, also get your Stay Brewed coffee at staybrewed.com or get 20% off at teamamericacoffee.com. It is great. We love it. And you've actually seen Craig and Lori Wire and their daughters on the show. Great Christian constitutionalist family as well. This is my wife's favorite, night and day. And if you want the Prather private label, you can get that at jeffreyprather.com/shop. So before I go any further, I want to just clarify a couple things. So normally I agree with Tucker. I have lately been disagreeing with him. Of course, I did a Substack on that. Was Tucker's Huckabee interview a setup? Because it sure looks like it was. And neither one of them did any research. But Tucker has made a very outrageous claim that Mossad agents were arrested in Qatar and Saudi Arabia attempting sabotage. Qatar has denied that, which doesn't mean it's not true, but that story has not been picked up anywhere else. And it sounds pretty outrageous. So I am disagreeing with Tucker yet again on that. And while Mossad has admitted they have elements now inside Iran fomenting protesters and to overthrow the regime, they have not said anything about that happening in Qatar or Saudi Arabia. Although the refinery attacks in Saudi Arabia, there is rumor intelligence that is Mossad. And the reason for that is because the Iranians have claimed credit for many of the other attacks on regional Muslim Mideast countries that had not attacked them. I'll explain why later, but they did not claim the attack on Iran. So that is likely Mossad. Bala Custom, do you see that Marine get his arm broken in Congress yesterday? Yes, I think that's a show. Most everything that happens in Congress like that is a show and planned. I know that from experience. Also, the Iran war started by Israel right now because they're at the height of their abilities to influence the U.S. government, and American Christian Protestant evangelical Zionism is on the decline. So Netanyahu knows he's got to move now. But the other reason is to take the heat off of the Epstein files as well, which of course Mossad is really behind. So let's not forget that. That is the line in the sand and the hill to die on, that it is not okay to kidnap, torture, rape, and murder children for intelligence agencies, particularly for foreign intelligence agencies. And finally, a story that special forces parachuted into Iran and were killed, I assess as completely BS. The photo that goes with it, showing a Chinook helicopter with guys parachuting, is as ridiculous as the story. So you're going to see a lot of propaganda from both sides, but I will give you my best intelligence assessment as a military intelligence officer of what is happening. Now, the last two killed in action service members have been identified. The first being Chief Warrant Officer Robert Marzana, 54, of Sacramento, California, and Major Jeffrey O'Brien, 45, of Waukee, Iowa. Both served in the 103rd Sustainment Command in Des Moines. So prayers for the fallen and their families. But as far as 30-something soft troops, Special Operations Forces troops being killed, I'm not buying that. I think that's just simply propaganda as well. So I want to get into the main point and title: CIA's Kurds attack Iran equals a long war. And to start with some background, because the first thing I always did as an intelligence officer was look at country studies. And of course, the Kurds were essential to overthrowing the Taliban government in Afghanistan. And in fact, it happened very, very quickly. I've had on the horse soldiers, the Green Berets from ODA 595, who were the first in, a retired Command Sergeant Major Vince McKella, for one. In fact, there's the horse soldier bottle with his signature on it. Very cool bourbon, because I'm a bourbon drinker, because my dad is from Kentucky, the hunting grounds, Kentucky. But Iran is not Afghanistan. Afghanistan had no navy or air force. Most of the Taliban came from villages with no electricity or running water. They were armed with old Soviet weapons. And they eventually defeated the USA. There were two wars. Remember, if you've seen the shows with the horse soldiers on, the Green Berets said there were 2 wars, and they won the first one within weeks. And then the Pentagon's big war went on because everybody wanted to get some. But they defeated the USA and were given billions of dollars of new American weapons and equipment for winning. Their only advantage was the mountains. That's the terrain. And there are some countries, because of the terrain, that can never be taken. Afghanistan is one, Russia is another, and Iran is another. They negated the U.S. air superiority. The caves were impenetrable to U.S. bombs. The Taliban were reinforced and resupplied through the northern mountains, joining Pakistan every day. It was a war of attrition on the ground that they won easily. And the Iran war and the Iranians' philosophy to win this war and strategy is a war of attrition as well. This is the same situation facing American troops on Iran. The same mountains and cave systems, the same ability for the enemy to be reinforced daily by Pakistan, and now Afghanistan by soldiers trained by the U.S. and armed with your own equipment given by the Biden administration. It wasn't a failed operation, it was given. Everybody knows when you're leaving, you destroy all the equipment. I always had a thermite grenade sitting on top of my commander's safe, and I just pulled it and let it burn down through the safe. Do not get fooled by the Trump administration's claiming premature victory because they bombed from the air or sunk some ships. All they have done is stir up a hornet's nest they don't dare walk troops into, that they know will get trapped, isolated, picked off like fish in a barrel by the home team. By the customs, they claim to have hit a hotel in Dubai, but a live streamer on the ground was there and nothing happened, smoke and mirror. Lots of propaganda. I'm going to give you ruthless truth, whether you want to hear it or not, and my best assessment of my military intelligence analysis. Iran's goal, ultimate goal, is to get the U.S. out of the Mideast, to decolonize the Middle East. Iran has launched attacks on multiple countries across the Middle East and beyond in response to U.S.-Israel strikes on Iran, escalating the conflict significantly. They're not on the defense, they're on the offense. They're not reactive, they're proactive. Gulf states Iran has targeted include Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Oman, with attacks including drone and missile strikes on the U.S. military sites, embassies, oil facilities, and civilian infrastructures. And many of these U.S. bases have been really destroyed. The U.S. Embassy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia was hit by drones. In UAE, drones struck Zayed International Airport and the Palm Hotel in Dubai, while Abu Dhabi reported shrapnel from intercepted missiles, wounding 6 people. That's the economic warfare I've been talking about. It shuts down these economies, making it very expensive. And this is a gamble. Iran is saying, you think the U.S. bases will protect you, but they can't, and we'll prove it to you. Qatar evacuated residents near the U.S. Embassy and reported missile attacks on Doha. Oman reported drone strikes on its Duqm port, injuring 1 worker. Bahrain faced attacks on its U.S. Navy 5th Fleet base in residential areas. Lebanon and Syria, Iran-backed Hezbollah has intensified attacks on Israel, prompting Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon, including Beirut's southern suburbs. Israel has issued mass evacuation orders in that area, and that's the first time ever that they have done that. The Israeli military reported strikes on Hezbollah strongholds, command centers in Beirut, Cyprus, and Europe. Iran attacks have extended to Cyprus, where an Iranian-made drone hit the RAF Akroti air base, prompting the UK, France, and Spain and the Netherlands to deploy naval assets to the region. Actually, that's also including Italy now as well. Azerbaijan accused Iran of launching drones near its Nakhchivan region, injuring 2 people. Iran has targeted shipping, including a reported strike on a tanker off Kuwait. and a vessel near Oman, and the U.S. sank an Iranian frigate, the IRGC, in international waters near Sri Lanka, killing 87 sailors. Kuwait and a vessel near Oman. Civilian impact. The conflict has caused widespread disruption, including air travel, suspensions, oil supply disruptions, and mass displacement, with over 100,000 people displaced in Iran, tens of thousands fleeing Lebanon and Syria. And that's Iran's goal, to show that the U.S. Is a paper tiger, and all these U.S. bases that they've allowed to happen for all these years can't really defend the people. And so to get them to change sides. But of course, while they're destroying their airports and their economies and their hotels, and all these countries depend upon these airports to bring people in, right now they're furious with Iran. But will they stay furious, or will they realize that the Americans' promises have been empty? Ropo, Father, forgive us. We have been propagandized for generations. Forgive me for supporting past wars and believing they were for my benefit. Amen, brother. I'm right there with you. I was kind of neutral on the Second Gulf War. I just go, like most soldiers do. We don't know what's really going on. You just go. But I am certainly not that person today. And as I've said in my previous Substacks, my faith is quite different. So Iran's ultimate goal is to decolonize the Mideast of America by striking all these countries and bases of the U.S. And showing that the U.S. Cannot protect them, and getting them to change sides. But the other goal, the short-term goal, that's the long-term strategic goal. But the tactical goal is to outlast U.S. ordnance. Iran's drone swarms primarily use low-cost Shahed 136 drones priced at about $20,000 each, and are being deployed in large numbers to overwhelm U.S. and Israeli air defenses. These drones are designed as disposable, one-way attack vehicles that saturate radar systems and force defenders to expend expensive interceptors. Generally speaking, for every incoming, whether it's a missile or drone, you send 2 interceptors to make sure that you get it. U.S. Patriot PAC-3 interceptors, costing approximately $4 million each, have intercepted over 90% of incoming Iranian drones and missiles, according to UAE and U.S. military reports. However, this high interception rate comes at a steep economic cost, creating an unsustainable exchange ratio. That is the key. Analysts warn that Patriot stockpiles could be depleted within days at the current rate of use. Qatar's reserves are estimated to last only 4 days under current conditions. So while I am projecting from CIA's Kurds a long war, interceptors are going to run out long before that. That is a major problem. Israel's layered defense systems, including the Iron Dome and Iron Beam laser, are being tested. While Iron Dome has successfully intercepted many drones, the Iron Beam laser system has not yet been deployed in active combat. The U.S. and its allies are also using fighter jets with low-cost missiles, but operational expenses remain high. Iran's strategy is deliberate attrition warfare. By flooding the skies with cheap drones, Tehran aims to drain U.S. and allied interceptor stocks, pressure Gulf states politically, and force a premature end to military operations. The conflict has shifted from a battle of firepower to a contest of stockpile endurance and economic sustainability. This is the old saying that amateurs talk tactics and professionals talk logistics. Despite the strain, U.S. and Israeli forces maintain the interceptors remain sufficient for now. The officials acknowledge the risk of running out if the barrage continues. And it looks like it can. The second Gulf War for Gilgamesh remains. I don't think so. No. I'm familiar with that. I think it was about oil. There was no real reason to go in, but I don't think that. Panama, my city, has doubled in size in the last 20 years. Are displaced Middle Easterners coming to America? Yes, certainly. That's to create the religious war in America. And let me see, it's probably Earl Jackson there on X. Operation Epic Failure. If we had so many weapons, why are we pulling THAAD systems from South Korea? Exactly. Because we're running out. That's exactly right. So on Monday, this story broke. A new report suggests that the United States may be preparing to escalate pressure on the Iranian regime from within its own borders. According to multiple sources, the CIA is exploring a plan to arm Kurdish opposition fighters operating along the Iraq-Iran border in an effort to spark popular uprisings. And the Israelis have been bombing that border to give an avenue for the Kurds to come in. Iranian Kurdish armed groups already maintain thousands of fighters operating near the Iraq-Iran border, primarily in Iraq's Kurdistan region. Several of these groups have issued statements in recent days hinting that major actions could be imminent. CNN report that the Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps launched drone strikes Tuesday targeting Kurdish opposition forces, deploying dozens of drones against suspected militant positions. The report also reported that President Donald Trump personally spoke Tuesday with Mustafa Hijiri, the president of the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, according to an Iranian Kurdish official. KDPI is one of the Kurdish opposition groups targeted by recent Iranian strikes. Sources say Kurdish opposition forces are preparing to take part in a potential ground operation in western Iran in coming days. The plan is as strategic as it is bold. Sorry, excuse me. Pin down the IRGC. Kurdish armed forces will engage Iranian security forces, pinning them down on the borders, empower the people. By tying up the regime's military, unarmed Iranians in major cities can finally take to the streets without facing the same massacres they endured previous years. Create a buffer zone. Strategic thinkers believe the Kurds could take and hold territory in northern Iran, creating a vital buffer zone for our allies in Israel. The CIA arming Kurdish insurgents is the clearest signal yet that the air campaign isn't working as planned. This looks like a long war. Air campaigns never win wars, ever. It's boots on the ground. Now, if we look back at CIA-backed insurgencies, Afghanistan from 79 to 89 armed the Mujahideen. They won. They become the Al-Qaeda and Taliban. Cost of cleanup, $2.3 trillion over 20 years. Syria, 2012 to 17, army moderate rebels. Weapons ended up with ISIS and al-Nusra. Created a failed state and refugee crisis that destabilized European politics for a decade. Libya, 2011, armed rebels to overthrow Gaddafi. Country had zero functioning government since. Became a weapons bazaar that arms conflicts across Russia. Iraq, 1990s, armed Kurdish groups against Saddam, then abandoned them twice. And for the Kurds to do this again, after we keep abandoning them, shows they really like to fight, but they may not be that smart. The Kurdish angle has additional problems. Turkey. Ankara considers Kurdish armed groups as existential threats, weapons flowing to PKK, which the U.S. designates as a terrorist organization, Turkey blocking NATO cooperation, Erdogan pivoting towards Iran and Russia. When the CIA starts to arm proxy forces, it means planners expect a long conflict. Air campaigns ends in weeks. Insurgencies last years. The CIA arming Kurdish insurgents is the clearest signal yet that the air campaign isn't working as planned. More about that in a moment. Historical track record of CIA-backed insurgencies is not good. That's different from what the Army Green Beret Special Forces horse soldiers did, who were very successful. But story today is breaking CIA Kurds attack inside Iran. So from Monday, where they're talking about it, to Tuesday, they are actually doing it, means it was probably already in the plan, which means that the Trump administration and Hegseth probably already knew that this was going to be a long war. Iraqi Kurds have reportedly launched a ground offensive against Iran on the fifth day of the air offensive undertaken by the United States and Israel. Fox News reported an unnamed U.S. official told the outlet thousands of Kurdish fighters have crossed into Iran. And of course, Fox is a fake news, CIA-sponsored outlet. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said the U.S. military is not arming an insurgency inside Iran, though he suggested other parts of the U.S. government could potentially be involved. He's referring, of course, to the CIA. This news, along with the hiring of more Dover Air Base personnel, and Dover Air Base is where you process are killed in action. If you want to see that, watch Taking Chance. You'll see Dover featured there extensively. But this news, along with the hiring of more Dover Air Base personnel to process KIA, indicates a much longer Iran war than a few months. The analogy to the amazing overthrow of the Taliban government by U.S. Army Green Beret horse soldiers, who have guessed it several times on the Prather Point, does not apply here. First, Afghanistan is not Iran. Again, there is no ideal leader, as General Dahlstrom was in Afghanistan. All the SF teams praised him. He was the unifying element for the resistance and had been preparing for some 40 years. There is no such figure in Iran emerging. And of course, Trump is encouraging the Iranian people to rise up. If they're going to do that, that has to be unified. If it's going to be unified, there's got to be a leader like General Dahlstrom. There is no such figure. Second, SF is not arming, training, and most importantly, fighting alongside the Kurds as in Afghanistan. CIA ground branch presumably is. So this is the CIA's Special Activities Group, used to be called Special Activities Division, SAD in my day. I've worked with them. They have ground branch, air branch, water branch. But this is likely ground branch. Now, ground branch is made up of some SF, but also ex-CAG, Combat Applications Group, and SEALs, 6 and others, etc. Recall what happened in Afghanistan when JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, all wanted to get some after ODA's 595 and ODA's 555, Triple Nickel's stupendous success. Tucker Gar and the Slab Chapman Medal of Honor debate. debacle at Roberts Ridge. That is the essential difference between white SOF, Special Operations Forces, which is overt special forces, and black SOF, DA, direct action. While not nearly as sexy as tatted up, roided up, bearded berserkers bent on a killing spree of direct action, the unconventional warfare was an overwhelming success, led by the Green Beret horse soldiers. Black SOF, not so much. Just lots of death and PTSD. But Protestant evangelical Zionist and Third Temple advocate Pete Hegseth does not have the moral or intellectual depth to understand the difference. And the Trump regime is clearly drunk on bloodlust and conquest. Finally, those who fight the next war like the last are always wrong. The enemy's response in the Iraq War I was not the same as in II. Iraqi soldiers did not surrender by the hundreds in response to an excellent PSYOP leaflet campaign, but melted into the landscape to form a resistance. But even though I and a few others at DIA advocated for realizing the conventional war was done in 3 weeks, the leadership was not interested. I already covered this in detail in my last Substack, talking about Major Gant, the Lawrence of Afghanistan, whom Petraeus advocated for and took his philosophy, and then, of course, betrayed him. But the whole point of today is Iran now looks like a long war. And like the 20 years of GWAT, in the end, the Taliban were back in charge. So there is the ruthless truth of the Iran war. It's looking long. Earl Jackson, wasted Kurd. Yes. And of course, in Syria, we just abandoned the Kurds for an ISIS now president who's been photographed holding up heads as well. So Iran State TV was hacked and aired a message from Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi urging military to join protesters. And that's who Israel wants to be their puppet in Iran, although he hasn't been in Iran in some 20 years. Iran's television network briefly lost control of one of its main channels after hackers interrupted programming and aired a message from Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi calling on Iranian military to side with protesters against the Islamic Republic. Channel 2 of the Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting was reportedly hijacked for several minutes, during which Pahlavi urged military personnel to join the Iranian people in opposing the regime, according to reports from Iran. The disruption came just days after U.S. and Israel airstrikes targeted 2 IRB complexes in Tehran. Strikes reportedly killed and injured several employees and temporarily knocked the radio and television broadcast off the air. So there's the kinetic air kill, followed up by the PSYOP and the connection via NSA or NRO, Cybercom, or the Israelis' 8200. This is not the first time Iranian state broadcasts have been disrupted. In January, anti-regime activists reportedly hacked Iran's Badr satellite, allowing them to transmit Pahlavi's call for protest. So this is showing Iran, the Iran regime change is the true effort. The messages reportedly warn that continued use of global internet could result in blocked service and refers to judicial authorities, underscoring the regime's efforts to maintain control of public messaging. So whether it was NSA, Cybercom, or Israelis 8200, this confirms the U.S.-Israeli goal is regime change. And that is a lot. What that means is that Trump is not going to be satisfied with just some surgical strikes. And Iron Squirrel is tuning in on X, and Iron Squirrel does excellent intelligence summaries daily. Welcome, Iron Squirrel. Glad to see you. Well, Bala Custom says, good, let the Kurds run in. We don't want our troops on the ground. The Kurds are our allies. You got to stand by your allies. Again, they were praised by the Army Special Forces Green Beret Horse Soldiers. And maybe I'll try and get retired Command Sergeant Major Vince McKellar back on to talk about that, although I know he doesn't really like to talk about controversial issues at this time. But I have certainly pointed out the difference between the CIA's ground branch, SAG, Special Activities Group, and Special Forces, and how they were different. But also, according to an FBI document based on information from a confidential human source, that's what they call them now, CHS, my day was CI, confidential informant, considered reliable by the Bureau, Donald Trump has been compromised by Israel. And it claims that his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, was essentially in control of both Trump and the family business. And that also, of course, Jared Kushner is part of Chabad Lubavitch as well. And so I've seen people denying that, but that is very much, I think, accurate as well. Ropo, Mr. Prather, what is our helpful response? Wake up others with ears to hear. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do here. Is again, co-opt the failing American empire and fallen republic and infiltrate them, St. Martin them from the inside out, ground up. And because these corrupted institutions aren't going away, ideally, we'd like to get rid of the FBI and CIA, and I've worked with both extensively, been inside both extensively. But since that's not happening, the next best thing is to infiltrate them with next generations. And that's what Team America is working on. You want to join Team America, go to jeffreyprather.com, join Team America, which is America's relying on each other and God and not corrupt government in DC, just like we stopped relying on corrupt government in Britain. But this is a generational mission and very difficult. But if you want to work with some great people behind the scenes, totally volunteers, then join Team America. And you may also want to join ChristChaplaincy.com, which is my Christ Connection chaplaincy, because you need to have a moral fundamental basis for this struggle. You just simply won't survive it without that. The next thing to talk about is that the U.S. still does not control Iranian airspace. So the United States is close to achieving complete control of Iranian airspace. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth claimed at a press briefing on Wednesday morning. And so that's very, very crucial. Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the two most powerful air forces in the world, the United States and Israel, I would doubt that about Israel, will have complete control of Iranian skies. What he's saying there is, after 5 days of technological fight in the air with the air war, is because Iran is so big and their military is so big that they still do not control the air. That is very, very, very significant admission. And of course, Iran has shot down some aircraft. There were some friendly fire from Kuwait as well. If that was friendly fire, it looks like it. But Hegseth explained that this means American pilots will be flying all day, all night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of Iranian military. Americans' aerial campaign against Iran has involved B-2s, B-52s, B-1 Predator drones, and fighter jets. flying over Tehran, over Iran, over their capital, over the IRGC. Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air. Okay, Ballot Customs. Okay, sorry, I don't know much about those relations. Thank you. Well, that's why you can join Team America, or you could join Christ Chaplaincy every Sunday, 9 a.m. Arizona time, or you can go there right now and see my previous sermons, or look at my Substack on all of that as well. And also join my Patreon there. It's up right now, patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather at the $5, $15, or $25 level. Anyway, Hegseth has claimed that more bombers and fighters are arriving, and Congress floats a supplemental funding package to reinforce the military operation. Hegseth claims that the U.S. has nearly unlimited stockpiles and can sustain this fight easily. That's simply not true. We gave all our stuff to Ukraine already, and again, that's why Earl Jackson was saying, well, why are they pulling THAAD batteries from South Korea then? And that's because they're running out. And the Iranians have been planning this for 20 years. They've been planning this strategy. So Hegseth says we've taken control of Iran's airspace and waterways without boots on the ground, which isn't true now because the CIA has got Kurds on the ground. And Mossad has admitted that they are sponsoring protesters on the ground. But that air dominance has not been achieved is telling as to the length of the war because the size of Iran and her military. Once achieved, will this then be indiscriminate bombing of civilians? Certainly from the Israelis, who call them Amalekites, who must be wiped out completely. As I've talked about that before in my previous Substacks, supposedly they are the offspring of the fallen angels mating with the daughters of man, but that's not true. That was a different group long ago. But the Israelis will certainly want to wipe out the Iranians, just like they are genociding the Gazans, and from the American side likely as well, since it is Zionist controlled. While it is true that war is killing the enemy till their will to continue to fight is broken, as with the nuking of Japan, that does not appear to be the objective here. Genocide is. The Iranians realize this and have been preparing this strategy for 20 years. This is a zero-sum war, despite what Trump said about negotiations. Because the Iranians know, and they've actually declined negotiations, that what's going to happen is they are required for total disarmament. And then as soon as they disarm totally, the Israelis will wipe them out. Thus, the Iranians know they must break the U.S. hold in the Mideast to end support for Israel. And that's what I'm talking about the decolonization of the Mideast for the U.S. and why the Iranians have struck some 12 countries, not all of which have struck them back. And they intend to do that by outlasting the U.S. interceptor stockpiles. That is already close to happening. So to prosecute the war, ground troops are the final option. So understand what I'm saying today is that this is not going to be a war of weeks or months. This is going to be much longer. And that to win the war, there have to be ground troops. The Kurds cannot win all of Iran. Trump wants the people to rise up. But even with the Kurds and with the Iranian protesters, there is no singular leader like General Dostrom in Afghanistan. That's the missing element. So I'm saying something that's pretty significant here. I think there are others saying that too. Okay. So, well, the Kurds, Bala Customs, I was referring to your response about the Kurds, but still, thank you. So the Kurds must just love to fight because they're going to do it. They're doing it again, even though they've been betrayed over and over by America. But anyway, that's my analysis and projection of the war. And it doesn't look good for the regime change for the reasons I've just stated very clearly. The Iranians win if they outlast us, just like the Taliban won in Afghanistan. But the long-term goal is to decolonize the Middle East of American influence. Anyway, I want to switch topics to the restoring of a virtuous populace in America. So there's an Arkansas man accused of killing his daughter's rapist, who has won the GOP sheriff nomination while still on trial. Arkansas father who killed his teenage daughter's alleged rapist won the Republican primary for Lonoke County Sheriff on Tuesday as he awaits trial for second-degree murder charges, which is unbelievable. Aaron Spencer won 53.53% of the vote against two challengers in the primary, according to the Arkansas Secretary of State's website. Trump won Lonoke County in Little Rock by over 50%. The state filed charges against Spencer in October 24, accusing him of second-degree murder of a 67-year-old Michael Fossler, who had been charged with multiple sexual crimes against Spencer's daughter. Unbelievable. Then 13. She was 13 years old. At the time, the father fatally shot Fossler. The alleged rapist was out on bond. Spencer announced his campaign for sheriff a year later in October 25, stating that he saw the failures of the justice system firsthand. It's not the failures, it's the corruption in the sheriff's office and child protective services, in the judiciary. He said, through my own fight for justice, I have seen firsthand the failures in law enforcement in our circuit court, and I refuse to stand by while others face these same failures. Spencer's campaign website states that he fully disputes the charges against him and is running to restore trust in law enforcement, ensure that no family in Lonoke County ever faces the same failures his family did. According to court documents, Spencer found a hoodie on a stuffed animal in his daughter's bed. This guy came into his house. Spencer found Fossler's truck with his daughter inside, forced the truck off the highway where the two entered an altercation. Spencer later called 911 to report that he had shot Fossler. Arkansas state court records show that Fossler faced 43 felony counts of sexual offenses against Spencer's daughter, including internet stalking of a child, fourth-degree sexual assault, and sexual indecency with a child. So this is the biggest story, really. This is a crucial inflection point in restoring a virtuous populace to America. And I'm, of course, referring to Benjamin Franklin, that said you can only have a republic if you have a virtuous populace. And of course, our virtues are based upon Mosaic law, not Judaism, but Mosaic law, the 10 Commandments, and Christic law, the 2 Christic Commandments, which were actually from the Torah as well. But this is a crucial inflection point. Recall that the Clintons made Arkansas their crime syndicate headquarters. Amina was the transshipment point for Ollie North's CIA, cocaine, and Iran-Contra debacle. The U.S. Border Patrol, ICE, HHS, and CIA were running children under Pedo Joe. Under Trump, the AG and DOJ protect the Epstein child kidnappers, rapists, and murderers. Too many times, we have seen husbandless, lesbian, or man-hating moms pimp their kids to trannies. All too often, no dads are present, nor protecting their wives and children from predators. The media celebrates predators and portrays dads as wimps or evil, especially if they're white and heterosexual. Now, finally, we see one real man and dad, one 82nd Airborne combat veteran, take action. And after neutralizing the threat, run for sheriff whilst being falsely charged. Under established law, deadly force is authorized for rape. Follow this case, share it. The precedent legally and morally is more significant to saving America than anything happening in the cesspool of DC. And so deadly force is authorized. Justification for deadly force is murder, arson, kidnapping, armed robbery, and rape. Automatically activates under the law deadly force. And of course, this guy had done this before. And the threat has to be imminent, has to have the ability and the means to carry it out, which, of course, from the facts I've heard, he had all of those. So why was this guy even charged? Why wasn't he given awards? Because the law enforcement and judiciary are totally corrupted, because he should never have been charged. He should have been given a medal. That's the kind of sheriff we need in every county. Well, exactly, Earl Jackson. That's what I'm saying is this one incident in Arkansas, which is, I've been to Arkansas. That's where I got my, when I was inducted into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame. It's still kind of rural. That's why the Clintons went there, to take advantage of the people. This is very significant and is the beginning of a return to a virtuous populace in America. Finally, some real men and real dads standing up. More good news is resistance is rising inside of Israel. According to reports coming from inside Israel, particularly from Tel Aviv and Haifa, the situation is pointing towards organized civil disobedience and a breakdown of military discipline. When more than 200 buildings are reduced to rubble and the Iron Dome defense system is perceived to have completely failed it, that's not true, not completely, it is natural for the public to lose trust in the state. Based on the current situation, the internal unrest appears to have several key aspects. There's a clash between the military and police. Israeli media and social media reports suggest that several reservists have refused to report for duty. Their stance is if the leadership, Netanyahu and the president, are absent, Netanyahu's in Germany, Netanyahu's kids are in Florida, why should they risk their lives? And that's right. That's not leadership from the front. It's leadership. There is no leadership there. Police violence. Clashes have occurred between civilians and police in the streets of Tel Aviv. People are protesting the lack of facilities and bunkers and the government's silence. So every time there's a drone swarm from Iran, and there are lots, they have to go into bunkers. By the way, if you're not Israeli, you don't get to go in the bunker. Just to show the double standard there. But the bunkers are overfilled. And again, I think this is also part of Iran's strategy to show the Israeli people that the Israeli government can't really protect them. And of course, there are Supreme Court decisions in the United States that show the police really are not there to protect you. There's about a dozen of those. I've talked about that many times. But if you have questions about that, put them in the chat and I will explain it. From north to center, due to Hezbollah's attacks, hundreds of thousands of Israelis had already relocated from northern areas. Now, following the destruction of 200 buildings in Tel Aviv, central regions are witnessing a wave of internal displacement, overwhelming local administrative systems. So this is Iran's philosophy, strategy working. Psychological warfare in bunkers. The psychological crisis by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard is reportedly becoming visible on the ground. Underground bunkers in Israel are overcrowded with reports of severe shortages of food and medicine. Tensions are rising with instances of people attacking one another, and the military is facing serious challenges. So if you ever met Israelis, they are very combative and argumentative. In Netanyahu's absence, extremist groups within Israel have reportedly begun arming themselves because everybody's armed in Israel. These groups are making decisions independent of the government, potentially pushing the country towards internal civil war. Now, that's a big stretch, but it is the beginning of the fall of Jewish Zionism. And there are Orthodox rabbis and Israelis who have long been against Zionism in Israel. I used to show clips of them being beaten by the Israeli police when I had my cockpit with my two screens, which I don't have because of the house fire. And thank you for all bearing with me because the house is supposed to be done in March or April, although that doesn't mean I'll have my cockpit up by then. But anyway, Israel is currently fighting now on two fronts, externally against Iran and its allies, and internally against a collapsing domestic structure. I don't think the internal structure is collapsing so much as it is beginning to collapse. The withdrawal or distancing of France and other allies have reportedly dealt a final blow to Israeli public confidence. So those are all good things. Ropo. Do you have an opinion of where a false flag event may occur in the U.S.? What city or cities? Yeah, certainly it'll be in a major city because you want most bang for your buck. And it'll probably be where there's a major Muslim population as well. So that's most likely New York or Minnesota or Minneapolis or Texas is where those will probably happen. Moving on back to the Epstein line in the sand, because it's really important to remember that part of this war is to distract from that. Representative James Comer says he's not interested in investigating Leslie Wexner. Of course, without Leslie Wexner of Victoria's Secrets, there'd be no Jeffrey Epstein. If you want to know why, you can look at my X and you can see a photo of Comer with his shirt off with a child at Epstein Island. So, and even, Clarence Thomas was there as well. And then finally, where we should be concentrating in our own hemisphere, U.S. Southern Command says U.S. Ecuadorian forces have launched operations against narco-terrorist organizations in Ecuador. So this, rings a bell for me because I worked first in Central and South America in PSYOPs and then Special Forces, and then with DEA, while I was DIA back in the 80s and then 90s with counter-drug operations. So U.S. and military forces have launched or operations against designated terrorist organizations in Ecuador. And this is part of what I'm saying about not celebrating death. There's some guy on YouTube, I think David Hofstetter or something, who talks about commandos lighting people up and everything. And then he shows photos. All they're doing is getting on a Black Hawk, and he's trying to be all dramatic about it. But I am in agreement with Trump on this, as designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations and fighting them with host nation forces. And that's something, I did quite a bit of when I was a DEA special agent snowcap operator as well. But that also shows how thinly spread U.S. forces are. And again, I think confirms the false story of special operations forces parachuting into Iran, which is absurd. But operating in our hemisphere, in Ecuador, in Venezuela, in Central America, certainly is within their purview and within their ability. But going into Iran, that's a whole another story. Plus, we don't even have, per Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, air dominance yet. So you're going to insert commandos where you don't even have air dominance. That makes no sense at all. Pamela, the Muslims in my city have been protesting for a free Iran for months. Yeah, there's a lot of positive protests in America, in Europe for ex-Iranians. There are protests against the theocratic regime in Iran. There are protests for, which are government sponsored. It's very difficult to say, who is what the majority is. But I can tell you with certainty that bombing does not decrease resistance. It builds resistance because when you cut off the water and the electricity and everything, people have to become tribal and they have to rely on each other. This is exactly what happened in London. Hitler thought he could bomb London into submission. London decided to sacrifice their city to save their planes for air dominance, and that worked very clearly. And Hegseth and Trump seem to go along with the siren call of air war, which has not even achieved air dominance yet. So ideally, the Iranians want to decolonize the U.S. out of the Mideast. And by striking all these countries and all these countries with American bases and their hotels and their airports, they want to show those countries that the Americans are a paper tiger. And also that America will defend Israel first and not them, which has happened. So that is very, very significant as well. That's the long-term strategic goal, and that is a long, difficult thing to achieve. But the tactical goal is simply to outlast the interceptor stockpile and to sustain their country. So now if we look at Venezuela, and we look at Afghanistan, they were able to do it. So Persia is an ancient empire. Venezuela is not. Afghanistan is. Because of the terrain, it's just not, you can't hold it. Nobody could hold it. And so I assess the same thing with Persia here as well. So I don't see any more questions. I'll pause there for a second. If there are any questions in the Rumble chat. But again, for the America's virtuous populace is very important that we support Aaron in Arkansas, finally a real man standing up. So, don't see any more questions, so I'll go ahead and wrap up. Again, thank you for your continued prayers and support with my cough. I'm doing the best I can here to get over it. So remember, Nick Fuentes and Steve Crowder say Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk. Anyone who says that is either a moron or a fed, and neither are morons. Steve Bannon wanted to work for Epstein after his conviction. That's finally coming out on X as well. I've always said Bannon was a fraud. Anyone who supported Epstein supports child rape. Tim Pool, Dinesh D'Souza, and Victor Hansen denounced Tucker and Candace for exposing Israeli Zionism. Anyone supporting Zionism is neither a Christian nor a patriot. You are witnessing the masks come off the controlled opposition pretenders. There is a reason why some liberty luminaries blow up big and fast, and some, like me, do not. Money, they're paid off. False flags are not the exception. They are the rule. The scale is massive, the depth profound. The subject is the only one not in on it, although you're often tricked into thinking they are. Think the Ashley Babbitt sniping. Yes, sniping, as in Charlie Kirk. Everyone around her was in on it. And like Judas with Jesus, it is always those closest. Recall the sting with Newman, Redford, and crew. The mark is Shaw. Not innocent, not in on it, but thinking he is. But the show is for us to sell the script. As long as you keep buying it, they'll keep selling it. Are you buying it yet again?